G'day battlers, and today we're going to be diving into some more key matchups that you're going to need to know for your battles in the Great League. Now, last week we did a video talking all about the in-depth matchups of Feraligatr, Clodsire, and Dunsparce. You can watch that back, it's going to be linked up there and also in the description, also at the very end of this video, but if you want to go watch that now, you should probably just click the description link, I suppose. But anyway, today we're going to continue on this matchup mastery series, and we're going to go through another couple of key matchups that you are going to want to learn for your Great League, and especially some Pokemon that are doing very well in the current Play Pokemon Championship series. So in this video, we're going to be looking into Diggersby, we're going to be looking into Toxapex, Shadow Drapion, and Malamar. So these four picks are all going to be really good and are doing really well at the moment. There's going to be timestamps in the progress bar down below if you want to skip to a specific Pokemon or if you want to skip to a specific matchup. Even if you've watched this video once and you're coming back again because you're like, oh, I feel like I need to sort of revise on my Toxapex, for example, you can come back here, go to the timestamp and sort of learn it all again, and it'll all be there to help out. But today we're going to be starting off with Diggersby because Diggersby has all of a sudden become way more popular than Clodsire as a ground type in the Pokemon GO Great League meta. You can see it in the Championship series. I mean, in the last video even, we brought up the Joinville Brazil top 8 teams, and Diggersby was on 6 out of 8 teams. Clodsire was like on what? It was on like 2 of the 8 or something like that. It was way down. And just this weekend, we had the Lima Special Championship. It's not called Special Event anymore. It's called Special Championship, but it just wrapped up. It was actually like a few hours ago, to be honest, from when we're recording this. But we can see Diggersby on 3 of the top 4 teams with no Clodsire in that top 4 at all. So let's take a look at why Diggersby is actually so good. Now, we actually looked at Diggersby at the end of the last video, but just to recap, we looked at it against Clodsire, which it just like hard wins, straight Scorching Sands. It just demolishes Clodsire. Same thing against Dunsparce. Against Dunsparce, Diggersby just hard demolishes. It has a Fire Punch bait here, but even if you go straight Scorching Sands, Diggersby does incredibly well here and just, is able to take the win here. I mean, we even see 19 turns difference. And plus, with both of these matchups, the PvPoke simulation has it doing this attack drop at the very end where it is completely meaningless. If it gets it like on the first Scorching Sands, the matchup just becomes even better. The other recap matchup is against Feraligatr. So against like Shadow Feraligatr, straight scenario, it is a loss 2 turns, but you can sort of see that it's actually really close here in the one shield. I mean, Feraligatr's got 1 HP remaining, which means that it's very IV dependent on how much HP and defense the Feraligatr actually has. Plus, if you go to the 2 shield scenario, you can see that Diggersby is actually able to win here. It does have the 2 Fire Punch bait plus the Scorching Sands, but yeah, if you want more details about any of these 3 matchups, go back and watch the last video because that, again, it's in the timestamps of the last video, it's at the very end, but we do talk about Diggersby in all 3 of these matchups. But let's talk about Diggersby in some new matchups. So this is Diggersby against the Open Great League. You can see that it's got a really weird profile where it's got like a nice little chunk of wins here against 45% of the Open Great League meta. And then all of its losses are like actually really close, somewhat because Diggersby is just so bulky that it can really take hits from everyone. And Scorching Sands really do actually start to add up. Now, some of this is that there are Fire Punch baits going on as well. And that is really what we're going to be looking to sort of solve here today. We're going to be taking a look at what can Diggersby actually do? Why is Diggersby so much more popular than Clodsire? And why is it, in some sense, one of the best Pokemon in the Open Great League meta right now? And so you can see that there's a lot of wins here against like the poison types, so the Drapion, Clodsire, Toxapex, and this is what you would expect with that Scorching Sands damage being a ground type, the Clodsire one obviously being super big. You can also beat things like Clefable, because, I mean, who's really seeing very many Clefables around, to be honest? And then like all of your soft losses here against like, Feraligatr's in here, Quagsire, Azumarill. It feels like a Pokemon like Azumarill should have a much better time against you than only a 413 rating, like a very close loss. And then you've also got the grass types that sort of make up the sort of hardest losses, but even against like the grass types, you still have access to Fire Punch. But we will jump into a couple of these matchups to really see like, why, for example, can Diggersby not beat Jumpluff when Jumpluff is a grass type and it's taking super effective damage. We will jump into the matchups and see where the win cons are. But let's kick it off with Diggersby versus Toxapex, a classic ground versus poison shenanigan. If we just scroll down to the default 1 shield scenario, it has Diggersby winning here, just straight Scorching Sands, and that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. I mean, look at look at this thing. Wherever it's blue, you have a win. If you use 0 shields, Toxapex uses 1. you know, you still win. If you use 1, Toxapex uses 2, you still win. So even with a shield advantage, Toxapex just isn't able to overcome the brines here. In this matchup, it does have this Scorching Sand sort of proccing the attack on this third one. And so like maybe if you are the unluckiest person in the world and you don't get that debuff, you actually do lose as the Diggersby. So, you know, the shield advantage scenario, obviously you're not going to be in it very often. Well, you might be, depending on how you play. But I guess you would sort of expect that one of these first 3 Scorching Sands to probably get a debuff. Like, chances are you are going to get 1 debuff out of 3 Scorching Sands. So, you know, keep that in mind, that technically there is a lose con here if you get incredibly lucky. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't be too worried about it. So I think I would just sort of take this one to the bank as a W. And it's a sort of similar situation if we look at Shadow Drapion, where you can just, well, it actually throws the Fire Punch bait here, but if we just go straight Scorching Sands, again, super effective damage into the poison types. We're winning with 9 turns difference. So Drapion's very spammy, and it does get 3 Aqua Tails off here, but you're in a pretty decent position. If it does have energy, like if it's the safe swap and it has energy and you swap Diggersby in, 1 Aqua Tail does a third of your HP. So if it does get a 4th Aqua Tail off, you are going to be in some strife. And because it is so spammy, it gets a little bit worse, like a little bit closer when you go to the 2 shield scenario, because because Drapion is outpacing you. Even if you go for Fire Punch baits, Aqua Tail does outpace you. And so, again, it's got the debuff happening at the very end here, but for the most part, in the sort of straight head-to-head matchup, the Diggersby is going to be able to come out on top, which we would expect because these are the poison types. But let's look at something that is a little bit more sort of in-depth, or there might be a bit more going on. Taking a look at one that is a little bit worse for Diggersby, we do have Diggersby versus Malamar, another one of the Pokemon we're going to be looking at today. And I mean, you can see that Malamar has superpower. It's not going to be the best as soon as a single superpower lands. I mean, superpower, it actually only does 44% of Diggersby's health. So like, you can actually tank 2, but you don't want to tank 2. Well, I mean, tank 2. The second one's going to be debuffed from the first superpower. So I guess that's not really how it works. But in the default 1 shield simulation, just throwing straight Fire Punch, Malamar charges up a ton of energy, throws the first foul play, and then throws back-to-back superpower to get some big damage through, and then a foul play. Like, it would make more sense to throw the foul play first than the superpower. And seeing as you're throwing them back to back, it doesn't actually matter here, but like, it's enough to KO regardless. But essentially at this point, you're getting incredibly low. And if the opponent has if Diggersby has the tiniest little bit of extra energy and it's able to throw a Scorching Sands instead of a Fire Punch, then you're gonna close the difference. You're gonna do enough damage. So like, for example, if we go to options and we add 1 quick attack, maybe it needs 2 quick attacks. Maybe 2 quick attacks is able to seal the deal. Yeah, 2 quick attacks. Diggersby gets the first Fire Punch, the second Fire Punch, and then is able to land a Scorching Sands. And that is going to be all you need to sort of KO the Malamar. And of course, on Malamar's end, you're sort of really relying on being able to get that superpower damage through. Yeah, if we remove that energy and we do the simulation again, and we just take off if we put a shield on the superpower instead of shielding up the foul play, we take this shield off, then you sort of see Diggersby is still able to win here. Or Diggersby is now able to win this matchup because that superpower damage was actually quite important. Just because foul play really isn't doing as much damage. I mean, superpower does almost double the amount of damage that foul play does, but for less energy. So yeah, I think it's not the safest matchup for Malamar. You really do need to land that superpower. And if we take sandbox mode off and we look at the 2 shield matchup, I'm not sure why the numbers are all blue. It's fixed now. But in the 2 shield scenario, Diggersby is actually able to win straight Fire Punch. Because Malamar, okay, there's some shenanigans going on here in PvPoke because we have energy to throw here. I guess 1 superpower isn't quite enough to KO, which is why it's not throwing until it's sort of too late. So even if we sort of change this one to be a superpower and we land it, we're still gonna get KO'd by the Fire Punch. But I think there's some real potential for there to be an IV shenanigan going on here. Like, you know, these Psy Waves doing a certain amount of damage. Like, what if we have, like, you know, a famous attack-weighted Malamar? This worked on the last video where we were looking at Dunsparce. Diggersby loses. Yeah, the Psy Wave goes from 2 damage to 3 damage, and all of a sudden, you're able to do enough damage where this superpower is enough to KO. So, high attack Malamar actually coming in clutch a little bit. Yeah, it's got way more wins against the Diggersby if you go for that high attack Diggersby, just because, again, like, you're getting 1 extra damage every half second, which means every second you're doing 2 extra damage. And Diggersby doesn't have that much HP. And so, like, you know, before Diggersby throws its first Fire Punch here, you know, you've already clocked off a lot of health of that Diggersby, just straight Psy Wave. So, you know, when we get to the Malamar part of the video, we will sort of take a look at, does attack Malamar actually have stock? I mean, maybe we should just look at it now. Let's look at it now. Let's go to multi-battle and let's take a look. Is Malamar attack weight actually worth the sauce? Now, this was a disaster for the Dunsparce in that last video, so let's go for our attack weighted Malamar. Let's compare it against the Great League meta, and actually it's not that crazy. So the attack-weighted Malamar picks up wins against Quagsire, Talonflame, and Toxapex in the sort of one shield, but then you are losing against Shadow Feraligatr, Greninja, and the sort of, I guess, regular Malamar. Now, I don't know if this is the worst thing, especially because you can pick up that better matchup into Diggersby, and if Diggersby becomes sort of the primo pick in the Great League, I mean, Feraligatr has actually been going down as well. I mean, if we bring up that graphic back again, like, there's not that many Feraligatrs. There's only 2 in the top 8, neither of them getting into the top 4. One of them, you know, Shadow, one of them not. But like, if Feraligatr is going down and Diggersby is going up, this actually could be worthwhile. So maybe it's actually worth the sauce. Maybe it's worth thinking about. We might look a little bit more in depth when we do get to the Malamar, but something to keep in mind, I suppose, that attack-weighted Malamar could be pretty decent. So one other matchup that Diggersby doesn't do very well in is the Mandibuzz matchup. So if we look at the one shield, Diggersby versus Mandibuzz, we can see that, you know, you go straight Fire Punch and you aren't quite at another Fire Punch, but it wouldn't quite be enough to KO anyway. So it's a pretty solid matchup for the Mandibuzz. But there is a way to win this one shield matchup if you are the Diggersby. Say you throw out your Diggersby as the last Pokemon, they throw out their Mandibuzz as the last Pokemon, you both have a shield apiece. Hope is not lost, because if you just play an absolute gambit, you get so desperate that you're like, I want to win this matchup however I can. You can throw the Desperado, Scorching Sands, and if you get the debuff, it's a chance. But if you get the Scorching Sands attack debuff, then all of a sudden, you will actually be able to win this matchup. Now, we have to sort of manually fill out all of these other attacks that would just, you know, these Pokemon would be getting to. I know I'm not throwing it at, like, you know, good timing, because I'm just trying to, like, spam this energy in here. Finally, we see it play out where the Diggersby is able to get the win with some terrible timing, if and only if you get that Scorching Sands debuff. If you miss that debuff, you're in some trouble. And you've just made the matchup even worse for yourself, and it is what it is. So, you know, that's one way to try and get out of that one shield scenario. On the 2 shield scenario side, though, it's actually way closer. Diggersby says you're only losing by 1 turn, throwing straight Fire Punch, no need for Scorching Sands debuffs, and just straight Dark Pulse is being thrown. And at the very end of the matchup, again, just sort of head to head, you do have a Fire Punch locked and loaded, but you just don't have the 1 turn to throw it. That would be enough to KO here. So if there's 1 turn lag, if your opponent throws on bad timing once and gives you 1 free turn, all of a sudden, you're actually going to be able to win this matchup in the 2 shields. But I was telling chat this before, there's no universe where you see this play out. I can guarantee you will never see this happen. You can play Diggersby every game of your life, and you are not going to see a 2-shield Diggersby fighting a 2-shield Mandibuzz from start to finish. It takes 127.5 seconds. That is over 2 minutes that you would just just brain off. Keep tapping Fire Punch, Shield, Fire Punch, Shield, Dark Pulse, Shield, Dark Pulse, Shield. Like, that's just not what is going to happen. One of you is going to swap, or one of you is going to, I don't know, die of old age in your chair. Like this isn't a matchup you're going to see play all the way out, and it's not a matchup where either player is likely to burn 2 shields unless the Diggersby player is playing hard alignment. Like if they're just playing RPS, you know, they're one of these people that are still running Gastrodon, then maybe they go for the 2 shield play. But it's probably better off as the Mandibuzz to just not mess with that. So you really shouldn't keep this one in your head too hard, because yeah, you're not going to see it actually play out in reality. It's just not what's going to happen. But, you know, the Zero Shield is there as well, and, you know, Mandibuzz is going to win that one just in the same way, because the Dark Pulses are just adding up a little bit faster than the Fire Punches, because Dark Pulse does 24% of your HP, Fire Punch does 13%. So Mandibuzz, still a loss, but technically there is that win con if you get the Scorching Sands debuff, so keep that in mind if you're desperate. Diggersby versus Jumpluff, a matchup that you would sort of think that Diggersby would be pretty decent at because you have that Fire Punch damage, but in reality, not how it plays out in the one shield. Going straight Fire Punch, you just aren't able to KO Jumpluff before it gets 3 energy balls off, and 2 of them are enough to KO you. So kind of not a great situation. I mean, if you got 1 more Fire Punch, you would have enough to KO. So again, it's a spot where Diggersby with energy is a little bit better here. But if we go to like the 2 shield, you can actually see we're losing all even scenarios as the Diggersby. So in the 2 shield, again, we're really adding up these Fire Punches. We do pace faster than the Jumpluff. We get to Fire Punches quicker. It only takes 5 quick attacks to get to a Fire Punch. And so they do still get to this last energy ball that is enough to KO. And you need 1 more quick attack to get to that last Fire Punch. But Jumpluff is also pretty low here, so I'd expect that this is another IV dependent matchup. If they have a bad IV Jumpluff, they probably lose this. So if we have an attack weighted Jumpluff, I imagine they lose. Yeah, Diggersby's able to win against the attack weighted Jumpluff because these Fire Punches just do a little bit extra damage, and you just get the KO before they can get to their energy ball. Meanwhile, if we have like, I don't know, an attack weighted Diggersby, then that probably works pretty well, even against like, you know, if we go the rank 1 Jumpluff, I feel like attack weighted Diggersby, oh no, it actually still loses. I guess you're just taking more damage from this energy ball, and they don't even need to get to that last energy ball. They can just throw Aerial Ace, and they're able to KO you, so... yeah, I think attack weighted Diggersby, not the way to go, which makes sense. I mean, again, this is a Pokemon that really thrives off of its bulk, its ability to get all the way up to level 50. I mean, rank 1 is a 0, 15, 13, and, you know, Jumpluff, very bulky as well, so generally you are more likely to see sort of more rank 1s and that sort of a scenario. However, if they are using the Shadow Jumpluff, which we saw that Shadow Jumpluff was actually on the 2nd place team from that Lima Special Championship, then maybe it gets a little bit different. So we actually see Diggersby losing here in all even shield scenarios as well. So this is a 2 shield. Again, Jumpluff is having... oh my god. Okay, this is a little bit close. This is going to be super IV dependent. So this is the just rank 1 versus the default stats. If we put this as the rank 1 as... I guess... the rank 1 Shadow is almost impossible to get. Like, it is just so hard to grind for, but Diggersby will lose to this higher rank Jumpluff. If we set the back to default, I assume that we're going to see a Jumpluff winning again. And so I think that this is going to be a case where you should check your own Pokemon's IVs against the PvPoke simulations. So do a multi-sim, see what your IV Pokemon loses, what your IV Diggersby or your IV Jumpluff wins against and loses against compared to the PvPoke default sims. Because if we set it to default, Diggersby actually wins here by 1 single turn. Because, I mean, look, Jumpluff is sitting here on the Aerial Ace. That would be enough to KO. So I guess 2 things of note here. Number 1, check your IVs. Number 2, man, 1 turn lag makes this thing tricky. I mean, like, you just having to know that state of the game means that you could have all this knowledge implanted into your brain, and you might still lose just because the game lags 1 turn. So also keep in mind that this is not a safe spot for the Jumpluff. You can very easily lose this 2 shield scenario as the Jumpluff, but in the 1 shield against the Shadow, yeah, because we've got the Shadow now, Diggersby still going to lose because, yeah, the Aerial Ace. It does even more damage with the Shadow bonus, but it's the same scenario as before where you're just able to do a little bit more damage with your charge attacks than the Diggersby. And, like, sort of a good thing here, PvPoke sets it so that you don't get the successful bait. You try and use the big energy move, and even if Diggersby shields it, you're still able to win the matchup by throwing an Energy Ball and an Aerial Ace. So that's really handy to know, I think. I mean, if we just go straight Energy Ball, I think that Jumpluff yeah, Jumpluff is still able to get to just 2 energy balls if it really wants to. So I'm not really sure if there's much reason to go for the Aerial Ace. Like, you'll have a little bit more energy, but at the same time, most Pokemon are going to KO you before you're able to use it anyway. So, I don't know. It sort of is what it is. Something to keep in mind if you're a Jumpluff player, I suppose. If we change it to like a different grass type, so if we look at like Abomasnow, we end up Diggersby loses as well, which I always thought this was kind of crazy. Double Fire Punch. I'm like, Abomasnow is literally ice and grass. You're doing double super effective damage with your fire punches that you get to really quickly. Again, it takes you 5 quick attacks, and you can throw a double super effective fire punch against Abomasnow. Apparently, Abomasnow can still take the win here, which is just crazy. And this is a matchup that you might actually see in the Sunshine Cup as well. If you haven't already, do check out my Sunshine Cup Meta Simplified video as well. It's on the channel. You can go check it out. But yeah, Diggersby losing to the grass types is kind of wacky. Actually, Jumpluff as well. Jumpluff is also pretty decent in the Sunshine Cup. And yeah, Diggersby going to be losing for the most part. So you actually are able to win the 0 shield, but like, yeah, the 2 shield, even like, how do you lose the 2 shield? Because again, you're outpacing here. You get, okay, you only get the 1 fire punch. You're actually debuffed. So the longer the matchup goes, the worse it is for you, I guess, because you are getting debuffed. But Abomasnow can win straight Icy Wind, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, Diggersby, even with Fire Punch, not a grass type counter. Although, okay, that's the other one we wanted to check out was Ferrothorn, because again, it's double super effective damage. Okay, Diggersby wins this one at the very least. You win against Ferrothorn. And that's in all even shield scenarios. Even the 1 shield scenario here, you win with 7 turns of difference. So yeah, at least you can take this guy down. Abomasnow, no. Jumpluff, kind of not really. Most of the time, no. But it is what it is. But I think that's Diggersby in a nutshell. So why is Diggersby so good? Number 1, because you have that really strong matchup into Clodsire, which has been so good. You also have a really good matchup into Dunsparce. You have some play into Feraligatr as well, which is really big. Plus, you're able to beat, well, you lose to the grass types, but grass types aren't that common in the grand scheme of things. And so you really just do end up with a lot of really nice wins against the poison types like Drapion. Malamar isn't that good for you, but you do still have some level of win con there. Toxapex, also really big. You've got play against there. So I really think that Diggersby, it makes sense that it is becoming such a top pick, and I really do expect to see a lot more Diggersby at the Louisville Regional this coming weekend. Okay, so one other Pokemon we said we're going to look at today is the Toxapex, and for good reason. Like on the Lima special event graphic, we do see here that not only did Marto win with it in number 1, but also it's on 3 of the top 4 teams. It's on another one of the top 8 teams as well. It's definitely been a Pokemon on the rise, and it pairs up with Diggersby very nicely, and we talked about this in the last video. With Diggersby sort of increasing as the main ground user, you do need other poison types to sort of, I guess, build up your team so that you have that poison damage. And one of the big ways that people have been doing that is Toxapex. So we'll look at that next. And by the way, that's the same reason why we're going to be looking at Shadow Drapion as the 3rd Pokemon off the stream, because, I mean, look at it again. It's on 3 of the top 4 teams. So there's a reason we're looking at these other poison types, but let's start off with Toxapex. Taking a look at Toxapex against the Open Great League meta, we can see that there's sort of like a little bit more of a spread distribution where you do have some much harder wins against like the fairy types, so your Wigglytuffs, your Azus, your Jumpluffs, Clefable, grass types like Abomasnow and Serperior as well. A Jumpluff isn't a fairy type. It uses Fairy Wind, but it is a grass flying type, so pretend I said it in the grass list. But it sort of has hard wins against these things where, like, if we just like really quickly look at Toxapex first, Azumarill, for example, there is just not much that Azumarill is going to be able to do, especially with Ice Beam resisted, Play Rough resisted. You can actually just throw straight Sludge Wave. Like, why even bother going for Brine? Straight Sludge Wave, you win with 20 plus turns. You come out with over half of your health. Every shield scenario, yeah, they can use 2 shields to your 0 shields, and you're still just going to be able to poison jab them all the way down. You don't even need to throw a Sludge Wave. You can throw nothing. Hard win. But by the same token, you do have some hard losses. So we have the ground types like Gastrodon that are just absolutely able to body the Toxapex. And I don't mean with body slam. I just mean mud slapping away. You are just losing all of this health. And now Gastrodon is coming out with over half of its health. You aren't even able to get to a second move as the Toxapex. Like, that is how hard this Gastrodon is winning. And it can even win if you just go straight Earth Power, I'm pretty sure. yeah, 15 terms of difference. So it's getting a little closer. You've managed to get Gastrodon down to half health. But yeah, you're still winning this one. There is one small. If you use 2 shields and they use no shields, then Toxapex can get the win here. But otherwise, yeah, Gastrodon is hard destroying you, as most of these ground types do. But I mean, let's look at Clodsire first up, because I think that's sort of a key one in a sense. It's sort of good to know. Even though Clodsire usage is decreasing, it is still around and it is really bulky. So let's at least look at this one to sort of just know for good measure. Clodsire can actually go straight Earthquake here and get the KO here, which is kind of crazy. That's kind of like, you are doing a fair chunk of damage with Brine, but Earthquake just like, you don't often see Clodsire outpacing things. Here we are, I guess. I mean, even if you threw this last Brine, Clodsire would still be around. And again, it's just like that last one against Gastrodon, where you can only win if you use 2 shields to 0. In the 2-to-2 shield scenario, again, Clodsire is going straight Earthquake. Like, PvPoke hasn't even coded in Sludge Bomb baits here. You can't do anything about it. Toxapex taking the L here, so friend for the win. So let's look at another one that is a little bit closer. I mean, kind of. Maybe it isn't, actually. Toxapex versus Dunsparce, another one that, you know, actually, okay, it's way closer. 4 turns difference in the 1 shield default sim. So you're going straight Drill Run as the Dunsparce. It makes sense. And you get a Brine Bait and then throw the Sludge Wave, which actually does a lot of damage. It does 40% almost of Dunsparce's health, which is pretty good, to be honest. And I mean, if you go straight Sludge Wave, I don't think you're going to be able to land 2. So the Brine Bait is kind of important. There's the 1 Sludge Wave. Oh no, you do just barely get the 2nd Sludge Wave, but yeah, it isn't quite enough to get you across the line, and so you are going to lose this one. But let's just for good measure, if we use that attack weighted Dunsparce that we found in the last stream, yeah, Toxapex still loses. Toxapex can win the 0 shield though, so I guess that's something. But generally, if the opponent has ground type charge damage, you're probably losing as the Toxapex, because you're just a little bit slow, you're a little bit clunky, and generally you're not really going to get the job done. But let's look at the third matchup, the thing that we were looking at in the last stream, which is Shadow Feraligatr. Now this one Toxapex can win because we are resisting the Hydro Cannons, plus being very bulky, so you can see straight Brine. We're able to take this one out, even with Feraligatr landing 2 Hydro Cannons against us. 0 energy left over, so even if they sort of swap in, they get 4 Shadow Claws of energy. You're still going to be able to beat them straight Brine. So that's pretty good to know. And you've got pretty dominant matchup here as well. I think the Toxapex, if we're being honest, it is a little bit more of an RPS Pokemon than many others. There's a reason why it started getting called like a new Bastiodon, because it really does fill that role a little bit, where it is so bulky, it wins matchups really hard, it loses matchups really hard, and there's not a lot of matchups where it can sort of flip very easily. And so you can see here, like, Toxapex isn't even throwing a charge attack. You're just 100 energy, farming Shadow Feraligatr all the way down, using 2 shields, and bada bing, bada boom, you get the win. Now you probably should throw moves here. I wouldn't advise this to be honest with you. It feels like you should really throw at least throw 1 little Brine. Let's look at regular Feraligatr as well. I imagine it's pretty similar. It does actually throw the Sludge Wave here. What if can you go straight Brine? Toxapex still wins straight Brine, although it's a little bit closer. If we go straight Sludge Wave, I'm ignoring Gunk Shot. If we go straight Sludge Wave, okay, it's a better win. So yeah, straight Sludge Wave, similar scenario. Toxapex has really good matchups into Feraligatr, which is one of the other reasons why I think Toxapex is really rising up as a partner to Diggersby. I think the Diggersby Toxapex core is 2 of the bulkiest Pokemon in the Great League. Pretty good matchups into Feraligatr. One of them's got a really good matchup into Clodsire, one of them doesn't. One of them's got a really good matchup into Dunsparce, one of them doesn't. So it sort of makes a little bit of sense why this is working as a pair. Let's look at, this Jumpluff as well. Again, this is just one of those hard win scenarios where you could almost Poison Jab all the way down. You probably can Poison Jab all the way down. Yeah, Toxapex wins straight Poison Jab. They get 2 energy balls landed, and they have an Aerial Ace, but it isn't enough to KO you. So even if they land it, then it is what it is. Hard wins. Let's look at sort of the more niche scenarios, I guess. So let's look at Toxapex versus Shadow Drapion, for example. Toxapex loses here. This is a weird simulation to be honest. Like, you only get to 2 brines. They get 1 crunch, then another crunch that lands. The next crunch gets the debuff, and then they land an Aqua Tail to KO. If they don't get the debuff here, do they still win? If they're really unlucky? Yeah, they still win. So the debuff isn't even necessary. And then, if they get the debuff at the very start, then you're in some trouble. You are not getting all the way to that last Aqua Tail. So yeah, it's pretty rough on that front. Toxapex, you are resisting Aqua Tail, but the crunch just is so fast off of the Drapion, and it does so much damage while you're not doing any super effective damage to it. They're resisting the poison jabs as well, so you can win the 0 shield equals 0 shield. You get 2 brines off, they get 2 crunches off. And you actually, I mean, if they get this Aqua Tail off, you still survive, barely, but they only need to get this crunch and they would KO you. So not the safest of matchups. I guess this is where Drapion's benefit lies if it has 1 single shield against Toxapex, because Toxapex takes so long to get to its first charge attack, like so long, that burning 1 shield wastes a lot of the Toxapex's time, and with Drapion being able to outpace it by so much, you are just sort of able to get the KO much easier than you would be otherwise, I guess, because you really are, the accelerator is on. So there's that one. Malamar, the other Pokemon we're going to be looking at today. We are a poison type versus a Pokemon that is doing psychic type damage, so you might go into it thinking that it's not that good, but default simulation says Toxapex is winning the 1 shield scenario with 1 turn of difference. So, a single Psywave extra, and all of a sudden it could go. Actually, it's not a single Psywave difference. It's being able to land a foul play would be enough to KO. Even the superpower would actually be enough to KO, but that would be a bit rogue. So actually, with that in mind, what if we just... Oh no, we need the extra Psywave damage. Like, superpower is only enough because we get this last Psywave. So never mind on that front. Pretty close. We are seeing Toxapex wing the 0 shield and the 1 shield. The 2 shield goes to Malamar because, again, same deal as Drapion. How the longer the matchup goes, if they burn 1 shield and you're able to outpace, like Malamar is, like Drapion is, then you just are going to be able to get more charge move damage onto the Toxapex, and you just aren't going to be able to do very much, I suppose. So actually, this is a key matchup because I was playing this matchup. In the default sim, you may get the win here, but if Toxapex is a really bad ranked Toxapex, and I know this from experience, mine is a really bad ranked Toxapex, all of a sudden you lose because these Psywaves start doing 3 damage per Psywave instead of what they were doing if you have a high rank Toxapex. Then all of a sudden the Psywaves are only doing 2 damage. So because I have a bad Toxapex, Malamar crushes me. It is an absolute disaster. So it's really important that if you have a Toxapex, that it actually is like a higher rank one. It doesn't have to be like a super high rank. You don't need a rank 1, but it does need to be on the bulkier side of things. You want that higher bulk. And this is very much true for most bulky Pokemon. Like, it's true for Diggersby. We found that it was true for Clodsire in that last video as well. Really, if you are running these bulky Pokemon, you want that extra bulk, and so making sure that you don't take 3 damage from Psywave. When it is such a long matchup, you are adding on like every single one of these Psywaves is 1 extra damage every single time. And so really not a situation that you want to be in. So make sure that if you decide to run Toxapex, especially if you're running Toxapex Diggersby Core, try and build a bulkier Toxapex if you can. I know it is a bit more expensive, but it is really, really worth it when you are going to see, you might see a lot of Malamars running around. And I mean, this is where it comes into a bit of Gambit territory, where you can sort of assume that your opponent is probably planning for the default simulations. They don't know that you're going to win that matchup, but I'll be honest, this one is pretty clear when you get into the battle and you see how fast Toxapex's health is just draining. You're in a pretty good position as the Malamar. So to be honest, that's Toxapex in a nutshell. Like, it's a very simple Pokemon. It's very basic. Its matchups aren't very in depth. And so I think next up we'll look at a Pokemon that is a little bit more, there's a little bit more going on. So if we bring the graphic back up, I mean, we can see that one of the other Pokemon that is in the top 4, as we mentioned before, is that Shadow Drapion. Very spammy, very quick, and very much more an in-depth Pokemon that we might learn a few more things. So Pokemon number 3, Shadow Drapion against the Open Great League. And you can see that it's actually a really, a really nice distribution. A lot of these wins are quite strong, but none of its losses are too too hard. So like obviously the biggest loss is going to be that Diggersby that we saw before. Scorching Sands is just a nightmare for us and we can't do any damage to sort of catch up. All of these ground type damages, so like Gastrodon with Mud Slap, Dugong with access to Drill Run, I mean these things really just do add up. Also like Quagsire, Sand Slash with Drill Run, Shadow Marowak. I know that Axon was making that mistake a lot. He was saying Alolan instead of Shadow, but then like a Clodsire. Like, so the ground types aren't great for us, but we have some really hard wins. So we actually have a really strong win into Shadow Feraligatr. I'm interested to see how that plays out actually, because it's not a super surprise, but it's a little bit of a surprise to be honest with you. Obviously got wins against like Chesnaught, against like ghost types like Skeledirge, fire types like Alolan, Shadow Marowak, and Shadow Typhlosion, because we have that really spammy Aqua Tail. We actually get wins against grass types as well, Serperior and Ferrothorn. Even like Cresselia, again, we have access to super effective damage. So let's take a look at some of these matchups. And I think that the first thing we'll look at is, again, those sort of big key matchups. And Shadow Feraligatr is really interesting to me. So I sort of want to see what the deal is here, because this could be an interesting one. So Shadow Drapion wins with 3 turns advantage. So okay, I see now. So Drapion gets to Aqua Tail quicker than Feraligatr gets to Hydro Cannon. It is one of the spammiest things in this game. It only takes 4 Poison Stings to get up to an Aqua Tail. It takes 5 to get up to a Crunch or to get up to a Hydro Cannon. So they farm up 5. Feraligatr does win Charged Attack priority, so it gets its Hydro Cannon off, but then you go for a bait, and because you've gone for a bait, you have 1 extra Poison Sting in tow, and you're able to get to your Crunch before they get to the Hydro Cannon. That's how Shadow Drapion gets a very strong win here, because this Crunch is sort of good and barely enough to KO actually. That's actually super close. That's kind of clutchy. But, you know, if we were to try and go straight Crunch, for example, we're going to see Shadow Feraligatr gets the Charge Attack priority. You have the Crunch ready to throw, but you can't throw it. So not only is this like, I feel like it's a little bit misleading for the PvPoke simulation to say that it is such a strong win, because it is entirely reliant on you getting that Aqua Tail bait, or maybe you go for the Crunch first. The opponent knows that you need the Aqua Tail bait, and if you land the Crunch, similarly, you will be able to get the win here. It's just about landing the Crunch. That's what you need to do to get the win. Now, yeah, it feels very risky, and I feel like Feraligatrs in general are more inclined to burn shields, because they're often used as that 2-shield swap sort of situation. So I feel like if you're against a Shadow Gator, the Aqua Tail bait has a solid chance of working. So maybe keep that in mind. If we look at like regular Feraligatr, I feel like Crunch isn't going to be enough anymore. Shadow Drapion still wins actually. A Crunch bait, and then we land a Crunch, and we land an Aqua Tail before they get to their third. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense actually. So, you know, you can get to the 5. Crunch and Hydro Cannon come at the same pacing. So they win Charge Attack priority, they win Charge Attack priority. You can both tank 1 move, but you're getting very low. And then you are able to outpace them to the Aqua Tail. Although you're getting very low at this point, and I do wonder if you're a bad IV Drapion, I have a feeling that Feraligatr is probably going to do a little bit too much damage against you. Yeah, Drapion loses if you are attack weighted, if you aren't at high enough rank, because they're just going to do a little bit more damage to you, and you won't have the HP available. They have 1 HP remaining even. So, I mean, by the same token, if their Feraligatr isn't that great, then, like, you know, if they're an attack-weighted Feraligatr, it probably goes back to a sort of even scenario, and Drapion wins again all of a sudden. So that is kind of dicey all around. It really does sort of speak to the, like, you know, I feel like most people sort of blindly try and build the highest ranked Pokemon possible. And I think in this series, we have found that that is the strat for the most part. Like, for most of these Pokemon, high rank is king. And that's partly because it's a very bulky meta, I would argue. I think there's a lot of really high bulk running around in the Clodsires, in the Toxapexes, in the Diggersbys, and it's really important that they sort of remain a little bulky. But I think there's a lot of Pokemon out there that the attack weight can really help. You know, it can get you this key win. Like, I'm going to keep mentioning it, even though it's not that good against most of the meta, but like attack weighted Dunsparce, like it can really surprise opponents. If Clodsire was still king, which it sort of seems like it's not anymore, then high attack Dunsparce could have a legitimate role in the meta. But with Clodsire sort of dropping out a little bit, maybe not so much, but you know, in this case, yeah, high rank seems to be the way to go. For the most part, like Shadow Drapion against Feraligatr, it's a bit dicey. Let's just leave it at that. It's very much a scenario where you need to use your 4-turn Aqua Tail to your advantage, but it also does open up your opponent to potentially stealing that win from you if they call it correctly. So play to your best. Think about what your opponent might do. If you think they're going to shield, based on their team, if you think that their Feraligatr is probably their sort of like their safe 2-shield Pokemon, feel more inclined to go for the Aqua Tail. But if they've swapped in their Gator as a safe swap and you've swapped in your Drapion, you're going to lose that one. Like they're going to be ahead of you. They're going to be able to pace their Hydro Cannons faster than you can get to your crunches. Even with an Aqua Tail bait, you just aren't going to be able to catch up. You'll need to get 2 Aqua Tail baits if you want to push to the 2-shield, which is a little scary. But, keep that in mind. I guess there is ability for Drapion to win here, especially from that lead scenario, but you have to think about when you want to bait or not. One of the other big matchups that we didn't go through last week was Drapion versus Clodsire. I'm going to keep saying Drapion instead of Shadow Drapion, but just know that I'm talking about the Shadow. It is sort of just superior to regular Drapion in this format. Now, as we said before, we're just going to lose this one. Aqua Tails are like adding up, but the Earthquake is just a little too powerful, and then even if we go straight Earthquake, Drapion still loses. So, yeah, Drapion can win the 2-shield scenario, but it's literally 1 turn of difference, which is kind of wacko mode. But hey, just because Clodsire gets to its last Earthquake, but it can't land it. So I guess keep that in mind, that you can just Aqua Tail spam all the way through. But yeah, a little bit of a dicey one in the grand scheme. Oh, this is because it's straight Earthquake. If we put Sludge Bomb back on it, yeah, as soon as you get, you actually just, no, it's getting 2 baits and then landing the Earthquake. So you just need to land the Earthquake. So to be honest, as soon as you get 1 Earthquake bait, I think that you can actually, even if they shield this, I think you still win. Yeah, so as soon as Clodsire gets a single Sludge Bomb bait in the 2-shield, Clodsire still wins. So not something to consider a win for Drapion. So hopefully Drapion is cheering at the decrease of Clodsire usage. So let's look at another one that isn't that good for it, which is the Dunsparce. Again, because you have these super effective drill runs. We mentioned this before. Getting a crunch here is sort of nice, but Dunsparce is just a little bit too much going on. You lose all even shield scenarios. It is getting close, 5 turns difference. Yeah, if you get another crunch off, which you're not too far off of, you are going to get the win here. So Drapion safe swap could potentially be a boon here. I feel like it's safer to just assume this one's a loss. Technically, there's some ways to get through this with a little bit of extra energy in the tank, but for the most part, Drill Run is just going to be a little bit too much. Although, I will say, I have seen a lot of matchups play out where Drapion with energy, it sort of gets energy from some point in the matchup. I've got my Dunsparce in the back. I bring up my Dunsparce, and they've just got so much energy that they just crunch. If you get a defense debuff, then it's kind of like, ooh, this should have been a clean matchup, but now it takes me it takes 4 rollouts to get to your first drill run, another 3 to get to your next one. So it takes 7 rollouts, which 3 turns per rollout is 21 turns. It is a lot of turns, plus 2 turns to actually throw the moves, 23 turns. In 23 turns, Drapion can almost get a lot of Aqua Tails. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, this one can easily be flipped with Drapion having energy, essentially, is I guess my point. So keep it in mind, but straight Sims, Dunsparce is going to win it. If you look at another bad matchup, Jumpluff. Now, this one I was interested by because it feels like you're a poison type. You should probably be doing pretty well against a grass type in Jumpluff, but actually, straight Aerial Ace, you can actually just get the win here as Jumpluff, and they're not an Aqua Tail isn't going to be enough to KO you. They have to get up to this crunch that would be enough to KO you, which they get close to. So if they're able to get an Aqua Tail bait, I'm not sure why it doesn't bait here, to be honest, because I feel like, say this was an Aqua Tail, then all of a sudden, we're going to be able to get this crunch off, and we actually win. So I feel like this is just weird PvPoke scenario. I'm not sure why it's not playing out best it can, because if you get the bait, you're able to win in the 1-shield scenario. Again, it's really close, but you can win if you get the bait. If you look at the 2-shield scenario though, again, we're going straight crunch. It feels like an Aqua Tail. Yeah, again, an Aqua Tail at the start. A bait would actually fix this, I think. And then all of a sudden, this last tap, we're able to get this last Aqua Tail off that would be enough to KO. And all of a sudden, we win the matchup because we win charge attack priority against Jumpluff. So I think this one is just some PvPoke sim shenanigans. But yeah, Against Jumpluff, any shield scenario, it seems like you get an Aqua Tail bait, then you're actually able to get the win here. Also, there is the option you could go for Sludge Bomb, which would be off kilter. I think you're better off sticking with the Aqua Tail Crunch moveset just because it is so quick, and I think that's quite important in current metagame, having really fast attacks, because speed, I mean, if you don't have a lot of bulk, which Shadow Drapion doesn't have like a ton, it's not the squishiest Pokemon on the block, but it seems like you do want to get the spam off. So let's look at another one that it allegedly loses against Azumarill, which poison type versus fairy type. Again, you would sort of be like, oh, maybe you should win here. But if you look at the charge attacks, Aqua Tail is resisted, Crunch is resisted. So it makes a little bit of sense. So you go 2 Crunches here, get an Aqua Tail, and Azumarill is just able to play rough you down. If you get lucky, if you get a debuff on the first Crunch, you still are going to lose. It's getting closer though. If you get insanely lucky and you get double Crunch debuff, all of a sudden you get the Winsky. So interesting. You can throw an Ice Beam here, but it's not going to be enough to KO. Ooh. Hello, IV dependence. Yeah, the Ice Beam Drapion is barely hanging on. Again, have a high rank Drapion. Don't go for the attack weighted Drapion. But yeah, Crunch. Technically, there's a win con, but just assume that you are going to lose this one. Drapion is actually able to win the 2 shield by... This is a weird... So you get the Crunch, and then it's shield, then the Aqua Tail, then it's shielded, then a Crunch, and then a Crunch, and you get the Winsky. So the moral of the story is you just have to get 1 Aqua Tail bait. What if you go straight Crunch in the 2 shield scenario? You still win, straight Crunch. And he's getting a debuff off here. If we assume 0 luck... I mean, getting no debuff in the first 3 is insanely unlucky. I mean, we still win with no debuff. So, yeah, pretty solid, actually. So, if you're in the Drapion versus Azu matchup, you can just go straight Crunch. Shadow Drapion versus Chesnaught. Again, it won. Wadaj won the very first regional of the season with the Chesnaught. And this one is much better for us. Just straight Aqua Tail. The poison stings really add up with the sort of max out season buff. Even if they land a superpower, we survive. It gets a little close if they do land this superpower, and I'm not sure why they don't throw it. Well, we sort of understand now why it isn't throwing it, because it doesn't win, so why would we do damage if we don't even win? So fair enough, I guess, but yeah, they should throw it, but they do still lose. And then this is really strong numbers. You still win the 0 shield, and then the 2 shield. Again, same scenario. We're just going straight Aqua Tail. Actually, it lands the Crunch. Is that even necessary? Maybe it is necessary, actually. If they go for the Aqua Tail, yeah, all of a sudden, Chesnaught survives on 1 HP, and you're able to get a move off. You get this Frenzy Plant. Well, I guess you go for the superpower, and then you actually get the KO. Yeah. I mean, you go for the Charge Attack priority, but I think that Chesnaught wins Charge Attack priority. We have about 118. Oh, it's actually IV dependent. Oh, no. This is a super IV dependent Charge Attack priority. But you can just save it by just landing a Crunch, I guess. Or, I mean, it feels so IV dependent for them to survive on 1 HP anyway. If their Chesnaught is like a little bit worse, like say they've got, I don't know, 7 attack or something. I mean, rank 2000 doesn't feel like it. Yeah, look, you are able to win. So for the most part, I mean, in the 1 shield, it's straight Aqua Tail. In the 2 shield, it has you in the default landing the Crunch, but yeah, look, you can kind of almost get the win there and just straight Aqua Tail, depending on IVs. But if you want to clinch it, then just land a Crunch. Simple. Just make sure they don't shield the Crunch and they shield 2 Aqua Tails. Easy done. Shadow Typhlosion was one of the other big wins, which just makes sense. You get to 2 Aqua Tails faster than they can get to. Well, they could get 2 they could go straight Thunder Punch, and they would actually be able to get. Well, they can't throw another move because they don't have the time. They can't even get to 2 Thunder Punches. You KO them before they get a 4th Incinerate, which is kind of crazy. It's almost worth it for them to not even throw a Charge Attack. Because then they don't even get the 4th. Surely the 3rd one lands, or they throw the 4th one and the damage sort of doesn't register. before you get this Aqua Tail off. Now, that you wouldn't really rely on that, but an extra Incinerate is only going to bring it down to like 30 HP. So, yeah, incredibly dominant matchup for Drapion there. Gets worse in the 2-shield because they're doing more Incinerate damage, and you can see that the Sims don't even try to throw a charge attack because they know that the Incinerate damage is almost KOing you. Straight Incinerate, which is pretty scary, to be fair, but you know, it is what it is. Again, it's a pretty straightforward matchup. Machamp is one that is... This is an interesting matchup because these are two of the spammiest Pokemon in the meta. Spammier than Feraligatr, spammier than Malamar. It takes 4 2-turn moves, so it takes 8 turns for Drapion to get to Aqua Tail, and it takes 4 moves, 4 Karate Chops for Machamp to get to the cross chop. So if you put them head to head, Drapion loses by 2 turns, which is kind of crazy. I guess just because, why is it 2 turns? I mean, 1 extra Poison Sting is enough to KO, but you need to land that 1 Poison Sting against the Machamp. So they need to be sitting around for 2 turns doing nothing. It's not like you're 2 turns away from a charge attack or anything. So I'm not really sure what that's about, but you know, you can see that Machamp wins the 2-shield even harder, even though it says by 1 turn. So you get charge attack priority, they get the move. Whereas in that 1-shield scenario, you see the charge attack priority, but the charge attack isn't the thing that KOs you. It's the 1 extra move that is enough to KO you. So I guess that's just why it shows is a little bit closer. But yeah, 1-turn lag could really mess around with this sort of thing, so something to keep in mind. But for the most part, Machamp really has this down pat. Like, it's a really strong matchup. But if Drapion comes in with energy from an earlier matchup again, you're going to be in a pretty good position there. And then last matchup we're going to look at for Shadow Drapion today is going to be against the Malamar. And Drapion says win was with 4 turns of spare. And we're just going straight Aqua Tail. We get them all the way down. We shield up a foul play. They land 1 superpower. We survive the superpower kind of close, kind of barely. And then in the 2-shield scenario, Shadow Drapion wins by 1 turn, which is kind of... They have a superpower here. I wouldn't go trusting this matchup. I wouldn't assume that Shadow Drapion wins the 2-shield scenario. I would be a bit more spooked that they're going to be able to get their 1 little move off. Now, I guess, interestingly here, say foul play wouldn't be enough to KO you here. What this means is that the Malamar needs you to have shielded 2 foul plays and then let the superpower go through for this to work out. If you no-shield one of the foul plays all of a sudden, like say we no-shield this one, even like they'll have the energy to throw the superpower here, but like, oh yes, see you can then shield the superpower and you win anyway. They don't actually, wait, do you win charge attack priority? Oh no, this is crazy COP charge attack priority IV dependent. Default 118.5, default 118.4. So it is a straight coin flip whether Drapion or Malamar is going to win the charge attack priority. Now, technically, you know, it's this 50.1% chance that Drapion wins charge attack priority, but that's rough. If we just bump up our Malamar's attack a little bit, maybe we make this like 13. All of a sudden, we still have 118.4. Okay, what if we go like 9, 1... Okay, 119.6. We've dramatically made this an attack-weighted Malamar. And we update. Oh, let's go sandbox mode, battle. Drapion still wins. Oh, because this... Right, we were playing around with it and we were sort of finding that spot where there was that charge attack priority situation. But for the most, it actually seems like attack... What is the difference here? Oh, we just barely lose to this crunch. I see. You know what? I think we just forget about attack-weighted Malamar here. I think that was very in the weeds, to be honest with you. Like this, like, oh, if this happens, then this happens, then this happens, this happens, then maybe the attack weight matters. But I think the key lessons, if we sort of go back to default, key lessons of this matchup is that Drapion, you're just going straight Aqua Tail, and most of the time you are going to be able to get the win against Malamar. Technically, there are sort of, if things go a little bit wrong in the game, then Malamar might be able to take the win. And it is worth noting for some scenarios that your Drapion, half the time, is probably going to lose charge attack priority to the Malamar. So keep that in mind, I guess. But speaking of Malamar, I mean, let's look at the last Pokemon that we are going to look at today. If we bring the Lima graphic back up, we can see that Malamar was actually paired with the Shadow Drapion on all 3 of those top 4 teams. And then you can also see that it is on 3 of the next sort of top 4 teams. So it's on 6 out of the top 8 teams, which is that the most common Pokemon alongside Diggersby? It's actually more popular than Diggersby. Is Malamar the most popular Pokemon here? So Malamar is actually the most popular pick in the top 8 in the Lima Special Championship. So kind of crazy, but it really does mean that it's going to be important to understand what Malamar can and cannot do. So let's dive into it. Malamar up against the Open Great League meta. It's it feels like it's leaning a little bit towards the loss. Like it feels like there's some hard losses and the wins don't extend that high up. You do win against a straight 50% of the Open Great League sort of core meta, according to PvPoke here. So if you sort of look at the hard loss here is to Guzzlord, which feels a little bit interesting to me because you do at least have access to superpower, but I think it's just a case that Dragon Tail just adds up a little bit too quick. It hurts you a little bit too much, and it doesn't matter how quickly you can get to those superpowers. If Guzzlord has 1 shield in tow, they're just going to be able to absolutely Dragon Claw wreck you. Dragon Tail, Dragon Claw, just destroy you. Also, losing to Serperior, I guess Serperior is just a little bit bulky. But I don't know. There's a lot of bulk here, like Charge Bug, like Mandibuzz, Jumpluff, Azumarill. It really feels like Carbink, Toxapex. You're losing to bulky Pokemon. Whereas if you go to the win side of things, you know, we're beating stuff like Greninja, Goodra, Dunsparce is on here, Ferrothorn, a Clodsire. So actually, I mean, I guess the truth is this bulk all around, like Cresselia. You know, we're beating things like Machamp, Feraligatr, Diggersby is in here as well. So maybe the bulk wasn't really a valid thing to be looking at. But I think that the first thing we should do is take a look at the sort of big matchups. So again, we'll look at our Feraligatrs, our Clodsires, our Dunsparces, and then we'll also, I mean, through the stream, we've already been looking at the Diggersby. We've looked at the Drapion. We've looked at the Toxapex as well, where there's sort of that, you know, IV dependent sort of, you know, who won, who's next. But let's start taking a look at these matchups. Malamar up against Shadow Feraligatr, which I feel like instinctively, Malamar's actually able to win here with a foul play bait and then landing the superpower. 503 rating, like you've got 1 HP. If you have the slightest worst IVs, you are going to lose this matchup because you won't have enough HP in the bank. So this doesn't feel super safe, to be honest. 2 shield is sort of similar. You lose by 2 shield. So it's actually the same level of like you get the foul play, the superpower gets shielded here, and then the Hydro Cannon is enough to KO you. What if you don't? What if you don't throw the superpower? What if you instead are like, you know, going for foul play instead? Yeah, the Hydro Cannon is enough to KO you whether you superpower or not. So you sort of may as well go for the squeak, go for the Hail Mary. But yeah, this feels like a bit of a dicey spot. I don't know. This is actually a complicated matchup, to be honest. The Malamar vs Shadow Feraligatr. It feels like it's very dangerous for the Malamar because you want to be landing this superpower, but it's really hard for you to land this superpower. It has the same pacing as Feraligatr 2 Hydro Cannon. It takes 10 turns for them to get to their respective move, but Feraligatr is just throwing Hydro Cannon constantly, whereas Malamar kind of wants to get a foul play bait going through as soon as there is a single shield in play, which, as I've said so many times, with Feraligatr, there tends to be a shield in play. So I feel like it's best to chalk this, even the 1 shield matchup, it feels like it's sort of best to chalk it up as a soft Malamar loss. You're unlikely to win this one. However, the win con is very much there if you can just land the superpower. And if you know, you can sort of go ham and just throw it a little bit earlier. But if you like, the problem is that if you throw the superpower here, for example, and debuff yourself, you know, your moves aren't going to do as much damage anymore, and all of a sudden Feraligatr is going to be able to beat you. So not only do you need to land the superpower, but you need to land it after you've got enough Psywave damage through, and they need to not shield it. So it's I'd chalk it up for the Feraligatr column. Don't be confident if you're the Malamar in this particular matchup. But Clodsire, because it has the poison typing, you're doing super effective damage with these Psywaves, but because it is so bulky, you get pretty close. They've got the Sludge Bomb here that would be enough to KO you. It's a Charge Attack priority win in the 1 shield default. Psywave is a tough one to throw in perfect timing, and if you get it the tiniest bit wrong, if you throw one turn too early or one turn too late, all of a sudden, Clodsire is actually going to be able to get the win here. So that's a bit of a yikes. But with Clodsire, they can just tap on the Sludge Bomb anytime. They don't have to think about timing. It's always perfect timing against a one-turn move, so that's a little yikes. But if you go to the 2-shield, the Psywave damage just adds up a little bit too much, and you just outpace. You get the win pretty easily. So that one's a little bit more simple, I guess. Malamar's always going to be the more complicated Pokemon. Against Dunsparce, you really, again, I think it's going to be a case where you want to land this superpower. If we go straight Foul Play, we lose by 1 turn, which is a bit of a yikes. And then if we go straight Superpower, we do get the win. So we throw relatively early, debuff ourselves, shield up this drill. Okay, we let the first drill run come through, knowing that we're going to debuff ourselves later. Debuff ourselves, shield up the drill run, and then go for the back-to-back superpower. It can happen, but as soon as you go to the 2-shield, that strat isn't going to work anymore. So, oh wait, it does still work. You debuff yourself even more. They burn shields both times. You don't shield their first one. You shield their next 2. And then you get the back-to-back superpower. Surely they can... Oh, because they're going to... So, what's going to happen? You get the first one, and they're still throwing their rollout. They then throw their drill run, but you win charge attack priority, and you get your second one off. So, it's a little tight, and the 6 HP remaining means that it's very HP dependent as well. If your HP stat is a little bit lower, say it's, I don't know, 1, you still... Okay, in this case, you still have enough HP. Now you're down to 1 HP, so... I mean, this is one of those ones that, like, maybe that high attack Dunsparce all of a sudden does pretty well against as well. But I think that the truth is that as we're going through these Malamar matchups, a lot of these scenarios are you want to land the superpower really badly. And so generally, you're going to let the first move come through if it's not too hard hitting, if they're going to get a lot off, if it's a long matchup. Like this first one comes through, you let it through. You shoot up the later ones after debuffing yourself, and then you try and get all the way up to a double superpower so that you don't nerf your own Psywaves too much. Like at the start of this matchup, you're doing 3 damage. Even after the first superpower, you're down to doing 2 damage. And luckily, after the second one, you're still doing 2. Maybe it goes down to 1 in here. I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's a pretty close matchup, and you really have to play Malamar quite well. I think that Malamar is probably more of a high skill Pokemon in general. If you look at Azumarill, we do lose this one pretty hard because, yeah, Foul Play, Superpower is both resisted. Somehow you win the 2-shield? Straight Foul Play, landing a super... So I'm assuming if we go straight Foul Play, actually. Yeah. So Psywave does enough damage that you can somehow win the 2-shield scenario going straight Foul Play, but otherwise you're going to lose this one. That one's pretty cut and dry. Against Jumpluff, we actually lose as well. This one looks a little odd. So it says we lose all even shield scenarios. We throw 1 Foul Play, it gets shielded. We land 1 Foul Play, and the Psywaves aren't adding up. We're still a little bit away from the Foul Play. And Jumpluff, for pacing reasons, needs to get the Aerial Ace bait, lands an Energy Ball, and then lands an Aerial Ace. If they go straight Aerial Ace, I assume that's not going to be enough damage. Well, it is, barely. It's tight, but you can go straight Aerial Ace, and they have the move. It's not enough to KO though. Okay, they need to get up to the Foul Play plus the extra Psywave to get there to actually get the KO. So they need 3 Foul Plays. You need 3 Aerial Aces. And you will kind of get the win with these Fairy Winds doing super effective damage. So there's that, I suppose. And then, yeah, Typhlosion. So in the 1-shield scenario, you are not able to get your second superpower off. You have it sitting there, but Typhlosion is going to be able to get to its second Thunder Punch. So 1 turn of difference, you will actually be able to get the move here. So the Malamar safe swap, Typhlosion does not work as a Malamar safe swap. Although if they push to the 2-shield, you actually, I expected them to maybe get the win here, but you actually Psywave all the way down. And then you have 100 energy going into the next Pokemon with a little bit of health in tow. That's kind of wacky. Is it IV dependent? If it's like a really bulky Typhlosion, Malamar loses. So you can't Psywave It goes from, wait, was it 5 damage before? Because it now says 3. No, it goes from 4 damage to 3 damage, but like, you know, you're losing this many. However many pink squares there are here, you're losing an extra 1 HP per square. So, high rank Shadow Typhlosion. Is this another one? See, again, Shadow Pokemon are so difficult to get high rank. This is going to be a tricky one to get because the default was rank 85. Rank 85 isn't enough. Rank 1 is enough. So I think for the most part, it's probably safe to assume that Malamar can get the Star Wave down here. You do have to burn 2 shields, which is a little gross. So it's probably worth, like, you know, throwing one move at least. Throw a foul play. Just sort of force them to at least burn 1 shield so that if they... And you'll still win. Like Star Wave all the way down, and you'll still have 71 energy going to the next Pokemon. This is where your Malamar IV starts. So maybe it's actually not worthwhile. Because this is actually this was bad timing. Okay, sorry, that's my bad because I've just let them get so many free turns with this Incinerate. That's why it's so close. So in actual fact, I shouldn't have thrown it here. In the 2 shield scenario, you can throw this foul play, you shield the 2 Thunder Punches, and then you can still Psy Wave all the way down, have 71 energy ready to go, and you've at least gotten a shield off them. And if you don't get a shield off them, then you've just won in the 1 shield scenario. So the 1 to 0. So you've burned a shield to win instead of burning 2 shields versus 1. So you go down a shield, you can Psy Wave down and have a lot of energy going into the back. So handy to know, especially because I think Typhlosion is still really, really good in this meta. Even with the sort of move to Diggersby, I think that Typhlosion is still pretty saucy. Just to speedrun a couple of other like hard losses, I mean, Malamar is going to lose against Mandibuzz, incredibly tough. I mean, this is just a disaster for Malamar. You can't do any big damage against Malamar, and it just adds up so much to you. Guzzlord, as we said before, it is a case where these Dragon Tails are just doing so much damage. You probably win as the Guzzlord doing no charge attacks. Oh no, never mind. You do have to throw charge attacks because yeah, that's superpower is a little bit too much. So, but you can probably just go straight Dragon Claw. Yeah, straight Dragon Claw. You'll be able to get this win, even taking a superpower, which like it does 160 damage. But Guzzlord is so tanky that that's not that much. It has a lot of HP. So you can even eat a superpower, which I guess it makes sense. Guzzlord eats a lot. And then one last matchup, just sort of a hard win scenario. Serperior, again, it's not taking too much damage from these moves, and the Frenzy Plants really do add up. It is a scenario where, again, PvPoke isn't throwing the move because it knows that Serperior survives it, but if you throw this one, it's a little bit closer, but yeah, it's a pretty hard win for Serperior. So I think in general, that is sort of, that's the video. So again, today we've gone through Toxapex, we've gone through Diggersby, we've gone through Drapion, and we've gone through Malamar. So 4 Pokemon that are definitely on the rise, especially in the sort of Lima special event. 4 Pokemon that I think it's good to know these matchups. I know the Toxapex was very sort of straightforward, but I think Malamar's tough to use. Even though it's on 6 of these 8 teams, I think that a lot of these battlers are really, really good. It's not one like Toxapex you can take out of the box and you can understand it pretty well. Malamar is very much, you have to understand it in depth. And I hope that this video sort of shown you that in some sense. It's sort of shown that it's like, oh, it's not the most straightforward. There's a lot of these, like, I want to land the foul play at the start, and then I want to land the superpower, but not too early because then I'm going to nerf myself and like yada, yada, yada. So there's a lot of that. Drapion is very much about the speed. I think the Feraligatr matchup is actually really interesting, where you want to get that Aquatail bait to be able to win the matchup by landing the crunch, because you get one successful bait, and all of a sudden you're outpacing the Feraligatr. And then Diggersby is just like, it's got so many good matchups across so many good Pokemon, and there is such a reason why it is, rising the ranks so quickly in this Play Pokemon circuit. And again, you can go back and watch the other video to see the matchups into Clodsire, Feraligatr, and Dunsparce as well. But with that said, that's the video. So comment below if this was helpful or not, how it compares to the first episode. If there's other Pokemon that you want to see this matchup mastery series for potentially. for this, again, this is streamed on Twitch live, so you can go follow, do it live, and you can sort of ask questions as we go if you're inclined to do that one. And yeah, next video is going to be the Little Halloween Cup Meta Simplified, so stay tuned for that. Uploaded the Sunshine Cup Meta Simplified as well a few days back from this upload, so you can check that out as well. But other than that, I think that is end of video. So thanks everyone for coming out for the stream, and thank you for watching this very, very, very long video. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know if you've got any feedback in the comments below, because I would like to sort of improve this for the next one. So yeah, if it's too rambly, if it's too quick, like if it's hard to keep up, let me know. Like, don't be ashamed. I'm a fast talker, and sometimes I sort of jumped through these matchups without spending a lot of time. So do let me know, because yeah, hopefully it gets a little bit better next time. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.